Last year I was engaged, and now I am at home all day in my underwear, and I'm nobody's nothing. I am going backwards. I am Benjamin Buttoning.
Maybe it's time for a one-night stand.
Two Night Stand presents a deceptively simple premise that gradually unfolds into something far more layered, emotionally revealing, and quietly introspective than its title might initially suggest. At first glance, it seems like a familiar modern romantic setup. Two strangers meet online, share a night together, and go their separate ways. But the film quickly disrupts that expectation, trapping its characters in both a literal and emotional space where escape becomes impossible, forcing them to confront not only each other, but also themselves in ways they never intended. The story centers on Megan, a young woman drifting through life in the aftermath of a breakup that left her emotionally unanchored and uncertain about her own identity. She's not portrayed as overly dramatic or overtly broken, but rather as someone quietly stuck, scrolling endlessly through online dating profiles in a way that feels more like avoidance than genuine hope. Her interactions carry a sense of detachment, as if she's testing connections without truly believing in them. This subtle emotional numbness becomes the foundation for everything that follows, because when she eventually matches with Alec, it is not driven by excitement or romantic anticipation, but more by curiosity and a desire to feel something, anything different from the monotony of her current state. Alec, on the other hand, initially appears to embody a completely different energy. He comes across as confident, somewhat cynical, and slightly guarded, someone who has constructed a protective shell of humor and blunt honesty to avoid deeper vulnerability. When Megan arrives at his apartment, their first interactions are awkward, laced with sarcasm and misaligned expectations, reflecting the often uncomfortable reality of meeting someone in person after building a connection through a screen. The chemistry is not immediate or effortless. Instead, it feels real in its hesitations, its misfires, and its small moments of genuine connection hidden beneath layers of defensive behavior. What makes the film particularly compelling is how it uses a snowstorm as both a plot device and a metaphor. The storm physically traps Megan in Alec's apartment, extending what was supposed to be a brief transactional encounter into something far more prolonged and unavoidable. But beyond its logistical function, the snowstorm symbolizes emotional isolation, the stillness that forces introspection, and the way unexpected circumstances can strip away the illusions people maintain in their daily lives. With nowhere to go and no distractions to hide behind, Megan and Alec are left with nothing but time and conversation, and it is within this confined space that the film truly begins to explore its deeper themes. As hours turn into an extended stay, their dynamic shifts from superficial interaction to something more complex. They begin to peel back layers of each other's personalities, revealing insecurities, past disappointments, and the quiet fears that shape their behavior. Megan's uncertainty about her future and her lingering attachment to her past relationship become more apparent, while Alec's guarded nature starts to crack, exposing a vulnerability that he rarely allows others to see. These revelations do not come in grand, dramatic confessions, but rather in small, organic exchanges, moments of honesty that feel earned rather than forced. The dialogue plays a crucial role in this evolution, balancing humor and emotional depth in a way that feels natural and engaging. The characters tease each other, challenge each other, and occasionally hurt each other, but through it all, there is an underlying sense of curiosity and growing respect. The film avoids turning their relationship into a conventional romantic fantasy. Instead, it presents it as something messy, unpredictable, and deeply human. Their connection is not built on idealized notions of love, but on shared vulnerability and the gradual realization that they might see something in each other that they have been unable to find elsewhere. At the same time, the film does not shy away from the uncomfortable aspects of their situation. Being trapped together amplifies not only their connection, but also their differences, leading to moments of tension and conflict that feel just as authentic as their lighter interactions. Misunderstandings arise, defenses are raised, and the fragile balance they have created is tested repeatedly. These conflicts serve to ground the story, preventing it from becoming overly sentimental and reminding the audience that genuine connection often comes with friction. One of the more interesting aspects of the film is how it explores the contrast between online personas and real-life identities. Megan and Alec initially know each other only through carefully curated profiles and brief digital exchanges, but as they spend more time together, those constructed versions begin to fall away. What remains is something far less polished, but far more real, highlighting the gap between how people present themselves and who they actually are. This theme resonates strongly in a world where digital interactions often precede real-world connections, making the film feel both timely and relatable. As the story progresses, the confined setting becomes less of a limitation and more of a catalyst for emotional growth. The apartment, once just a backdrop for a one-night encounter, transforms into a space of introspection and transformation. The outside world, obscured by the relentless snow, feels distant and almost irrelevant, allowing the focus to remain entirely on the evolving relationship between Megan and Alec. This sense of isolation intensifies the emotional stakes, making every conversation, every glance, and every moment of silence carry greater weight. The film also subtly examines the idea of timing in relationships. Both characters are at transitional points in their lives, grappling with uncertainty and unresolved issues. Under different circumstances, they might never have crossed paths, or if they had, they might not have connected in the same way. The snowstorm, in this sense, becomes a form of forced timing, creating an opportunity that neither of them would have chosen, but both are ultimately shaped by. It raises the question of whether meaningful connections are the result of deliberate choices or simply the product of chance and circumstance. Despite its relatively simple narrative structure, the film manages to maintain a sense of momentum by focusing on character development rather than plot twists. The tension does not come from external events, but from the internal struggles of the characters and the uncertainty of their evolving relationship. Will they retreat back into their old patterns once the storm passes? Or will this unexpected experience lead to lasting change? This question lingers throughout the film, creating a subtle but effective sense of anticipation. The humor woven throughout the story serves as both a relief from and a complement to its more serious moments. It reflects the way people often use humor as a coping mechanism, a way to navigate discomfort and vulnerability. The banter between Megan and Alec feels spontaneous and genuine, adding depth to their connection and making their interactions more engaging. At the same time, the humor never undermines the emotional core of the story. Instead, it enhances it, making the quieter, more introspective moments feel even more impactful by contrast. As the storm begins to subside, the film gradually shifts its focus to the inevitable return to reality. The outside world, once distant and inaccessible, starts to reassert itself, bringing with it the expectations, responsibilities, and complications that the characters had temporarily escaped. This transition is handled with a sense of realism, acknowledging that the kind of connection formed in isolation does not always translate Basahula into everyday life. The characters are forced to confront the question of what their experience means and whether it has a place beyond the confines of the apartment. What makes the ending particularly effective is its refusal to provide a neatly packaged resolution. Instead of offering a definitive answer, it leaves room for interpretation, reflecting the ambiguity that often accompanies real-life relationships. The film recognizes that not all connections are meant to follow a clear or predictable path, and that sometimes the value of an experience lies not in its outcome, but in its impact on those involved. Megan and Alec are not the same people they were at the beginning of the story, and that change, however subtle or uncertain, is what ultimately defines the narrative. In many ways, the film can be seen as a character study disguised as a romantic comedy. While it incorporates elements of humor and romance, its true focus lies in its exploration of identity, vulnerability, and the complexities of human connection. It challenges the idea that relationships must fit into predefined categories or follow conventional trajectories, instead, presenting them as fluid, unpredictable, and deeply personal experiences. The performances play a significant role in bringing this vision to life, capturing the nuances of the characters' emotional journeys with a sense of authenticity and restraint. The chemistry between Megan and Alec feels organic, evolving naturally over the course of the film, rather than being imposed from the outset. This gradual development makes their connection more believable and more impactful, allowing the audience to become fully invested in their story. Ultimately, Two Night Stand is less about the circumstances that bring its characters together and more about what happens when those circumstances force them to confront themselves. It's a story about the unexpected ways in which people can influence each other, about the moments of clarity that can arise from situations that initially seem inconvenient or even frustrating, and about the possibility of finding something meaningful in the most unlikely of places. By the time the snow melts and the world outside comes back into focus, the film leaves behind a quiet but lasting impression, reminding us that sometimes the most significant connections are the ones we never planned for and never saw coming.